So when Nintendo reached out to us and they said, we need some help with sound. And boy, did they need help with sound. Nobody at LucasArts knew about this. None of the other teams, and not the marketing department either.
We showed the demo and everyone was like, oh, all excited about it. And we're like, oh, I guess now we have to make a game.
Yeah. Hey everybody, my name's Julian Eckerbrecht. I'm the director of Rogue Leader, and I'll be the one leading you through the speedrun here. And with me are Holger Schmidt. Holger?
Hey, I'm Holger. I'm the lead programmer of Rogue Leader.
And Rudolf Stember. Rudy?
Yeah, hello. This is Rudy. I've done all the sound that you hear in the game.
Oh, not only that. Come on, don't be so moderate.
Well,
you
I
also
wanted to tell about the videos, but there's no videos in this one.
A little bit at least, but that's true. In Rebel Strike,
and voice editing, everything you hear except the music.
Yep, exactly. All right. So it's interesting actually to look at this 20 years onwards, because this year happens to be the 20th anniversary of the game, and maybe we should first dig in a little bit into the history of it. So we started Rogue Leader, or we always wanted to do something like Rogue Leader since the 90s, and we were kind of waiting for the stars to align, no pun intended, because on the one hand, at Factor 5, of course, we had been working with LucasArts for a number of years by that time. We started out working with their properties with Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures, and then they gave us Star Wars for the first time with our PlayStation reimagining of Rebel Assault 2. And that actually, Rudy, you did a lot of the video stuff for that one, right?
Yes, it was mainly the conversion from the PC version for the PlayStation 2.
Right. Yeah, and that was really the first touch point with the Star Wars universe, because of course they were pretty protective of it. And then jump forward when we moved to the United States, Marin County, where Lucas was situated, and even Lucasfilm to these days is here. That really was the point where the Rogue Squadron series started, and the first one obviously was the N64 version, the first Rogue Squadron game, and it came out of the idea of basically mixing up, or attempting to do something that would have the feeling of the 1983 Atari Star Wars vector game. I was completely addicted to that, and I just loved that game back then. And mixing that with more of a free flight feeling, and the free flight feeling was really inspired by an 8-bit, the very first 8-bit game that Lucasfilm Games had done in 1983, I believe, and it was called Rescue on Fractalus, and that was basically, for the time, on the Atari 8-bit home computer, was absolutely mind-blowingly cool what they pulled off there. And that really was had the same free flight dynamic with a radar, which was basically leading you to the next goal, and shooting in between. And if you mix that with the feeling of the Star Wars arcade game, that's really what we wanted to achieve. We very much wanted to do a different game than Larry Holland's TIE Fighter series was, because TIE Fighter and X-Wing at the time already had been done on the PC, and it was more of a simulation. And what we were going for is make it more accessible and make get that arcadey feeling. And Rogue Squadron was a huge success. Came out in '98. Had a pretty horrid development story, but we won't talk about that one here. And then, of course, it was a huge hit. It came out at the same time, or the same Christmas, as Ocarina of Time, Nintendo's Zelda game for the N64, or first Zelda game for the N64. And in fact, we were sharing, didn't we share the Zelda QA team at the end? Can you guys remember that one?
I don't remember.
No.
I thought we had at the very end. Yeah, I think we had at the end of Rogue Squadron. They
Sounds
had
familiar, yes.
they had just finished at Nintendo.
You mean the Treehouse people, or
the QA team at Treehouse? Yeah, exactly. Yep, they had just finished Ocarina of Time, and we were awfully late. That much I remember, and so we suddenly had 100 QA people on the game, which actually did Rogue Squadron well. Well, long story short, Rogue Squadron was a huge success. And at the time, at least, it was the best-selling Star Wars game that LucasArts had seen. So, of course, it was a no-brainer to make a sequel. And the sequel, actually, so the one thing which we weren't able to do for Rogue Squadron was actually do scenes from the movie, because our original pitch actually for Rogue Squadron was exactly what Rogue Leader and Rebel Strike became, which was basically a best of the Star Wars trilogy. And the folks at LucasArts, or basically Lucasfilm, actually stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. Yes, you can be in the classic universe, or you actually have to be in the classic universe, but you cannot do any scenes from the movie. So that was a real bummer. That's why Rogue Squadron, while I think it's an okay game, it doesn't have this nice weaving in and out between scenes from the movie and original stuff that Rogue Leader here has. But when we got around to do Rogue Leader, then obviously due to the huge success of Rogue Squadron, they kind of eased up on that whole thing and finally were willing to go with it. And that's why Rogue Leader flows so well. The game started actually while we were still working on other games for the N64. Holger, which one were you doing at the time?
Oh, I was wrapping up Battle for Naboo, right? The Episode 1 game.
Yeah, right. The Episode 1 game, yeah.
And
we were doing
and Florian was doing the Indiana Jones game.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I was spending, Florian and I was spending pretty much every night till midnight at LucasArts trying to get that damn N64 Indiana Jones thing together. Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Yeah, me too.
You too. Yep. No, but at the end of the day, that turned out much better than we were hoping for. Actually, that ever shipped was a miracle.
And we were doing the sound system for Nintendo. Musics.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, musics. Yeah. Maybe one of the things which led to Rogue Leader, and that definitely made a big difference, is that Nintendo and we got really close together between the two companies after Rogue Squadron came out, because Nintendo, of course, was the official publisher, and they appreciated some of the things that we did on the N64 that hadn't been done before, and so oh my God, do you remember how hard it was just looking at this to do that cable fly around and the controls for that? Holger, did you do that?
That was Thomas, actually, that did the Snowspeeder, right?
Yeah, he did the Snowspeeder. But did he also do the circling of the AT-ATs?
I don't remember.
It's 20 years.
It's 20 years, yeah. But that still watching it actually looks fun.
Yeah, although it's, I mean, we improved it a little bit from Rogue Squadron, amongst other things.
Rogue Squadron was really tough and impossible.
And it had 0 frame rate. I mean, the worst thing about
that was the hard part about it. Yeah,
I mean, the frame rate is just unbearable. People, if you play it on the original N64 version these days, it's barely playable. That's how bad the frame rate is. No, and that certainly what helped with Rogue Leader was that we got back into the mode of trying to do 60 FPS, which it isn't always. I mean, you see some frame glitches here and there, but it is holding it together pretty well, and that is partially because especially Thomas Engel, our technical main genius at the company, and myself, we got very close with Nintendo following Rogue Squadron. And so when Nintendo reached out to us in, I believe that was in '99, they had just started the Dolphin project, which was basically the GameCube, what was to become the GameCube, and then later the Wii chipset, actually, which was pretty much the same thing. And they reached out to us and they said, guys, we need some help with sound. And boy, did they need help with sound. Because yeah, Nintendo was, of course, the N64 was designed by a company called Silicon Graphics, which then parts of that turned into a company called ArtX when Silicon Graphics, who designed the N64, went bankrupt. And on the N64, Silicon Graphics actually made the decision that they wouldn't put a sound chip in. And that was at the time a pretty, shall we say, controversial decision. I mean, nowadays you have enough power that you don't need it necessarily anymore, although some helping stuff always is good. Even the PS5 has dedicated hardware for some of the sound stuff. But Nintendo basically wanted to kick out the sound chip, and on the N64 it became a horrible drag on the whole system to do any sound, because you had to give up some of your graphics. So on the GameCube, they didn't want to make that mistake, and they got us into the fold to, on the one hand, co-design the sound chip, and then, yep, exactly, and do the dev tools for all of the sound. And that's why we had the unique thing that we were really the ones who had the very first prototype chipset of the GameCube. That was in, do you guys remember when was that? In July of 2000, right? Must have been early July, or was it earlier than that? Yeah, I believe so. So in July, or in June or July of 2000, I remember Thomas and myself driving down to ArtX and basically seeing the first prototype chip running of the graphics chip, sound chip, everything. The flipper graphics chip, and this, which also contained the sound chip, right, Holger? The sound chip, the DSP was on the
one big ASIC, right? It was just a custom chip, big one.
Yeah, exactly. And we drove down there, and we were amazed. We saw that it was literally the first one, and we saw it before Miyamoto or anybody of the Japanese teams. And I immediately started to pitch Nintendo hard that they should give us one of the very first units to develop on, because we had heard that there was this thing, the Space World exhibition, where they would be doing the official unveiling in August. So only a month away, where they would be doing the official unveiling of the thing. And we assumed that one unit would go to, or a few units would go to Japan, and we convinced them that we also would get something. And we immediately jumped on basically trying to get the very first version of a Star Wars prototype going. Right? Was that or was it Tornado? I think we started with Star Wars.
No, it was that. Yes,
it was always Star Wars, because we knew we could do that one level, right? That one showpiece that everyone wanted to see, and so we went hard for that. Yeah. I remember that because we were only supposed to do the audio, right? Some of the dev kits we got had broken graphics, for example, or would only display graphics for a few seconds and then shut down. And Nintendo was like, "Well, you're only doing the audio, right?" We're like, "Oh yeah, of course." But it would be nice to see something.
Yeah, and the fun thing was that nobody at LucasArts really was aware of what we were doing, because there was no official Rogue Leader, there was no official Rogue Squadron II yet as a project. So the only person who knew that we would be working on this demo, which turned out to be the battle over the second Death Star, was the president of LucasArts at the time, and he gave me secretly the okay to go ahead, and he actually also allowed us and Nintendo to show parts of what would become Rogue Leader at Space World. Nobody at LucasArts knew about this. None of the other teams, and not the marketing department either. So when we finished that, and it took 19 days to do this demo, which were probably the hardest 19 days of everybody's lives who worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Rudy?
Yeah.
Remember how Chris Cly put together the level, not in a level editor, but in text edit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't have a level editor. Level editor for.
It wasn't really a game, right? I mean, we showed the demo and everyone was like, "Oh, all excited about it," and we're like, "Oh, I guess now we have to make a game."
Yes. Well, yeah, everybody was excited about it except for LucasArts marketing. Blindsided, and I remember being in Japan that morning, or basically that evening after the showing happened, and several of the LucasArts folks reaching out to me and basically saying, "Are you out of your mind? Why didn't we know about this? This isn't a game. This is because we of course placed the Rogue Squadron logo on there. This is completely unsanctioned, and you guys are crazy. There's nothing coming here. We haven't even decided that we're going to be working on the GameCube. Blah 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 blah. All of that, and they were livid and completely freaking out.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, can you imagine that's your job? This is the beginning of the internet, right? So it's not all out there all the time, and you wake up and to a million emails saying like, "Oh, when is Rogue Squadron 2 coming out?"
Exactly. Well, and they had as their biggest Star Wars game, they had Starfighter planned. And then of course but the fans were completely going for Rogue Leader, so it was a really awkward situation. Although Starfighter of course was for the PlayStation 2, and this was for GameCube, but still it was a political mess. And Simon, I remember, had to step in because I just told them all, "Hey guys, Simon knows about this. He sanctioned it, and that's that. You guys sort out your internal problems with this, but we I think we did pretty good here." Well, and that then of course led to about 5 months of infighting between LucasArts and us, because and actually Microsoft and Nintendo. Because what happened was that Microsoft, of course, wanted to launch the Xbox at the same time as the GameCube. And they saw the demo, and they immediately came to Lucas and us and basically said, "We want to snatch this away from Nintendo. And we would like you guys to do this for the Xbox and not for the GameCube." And they offered quite a big chunk of money, but they didn't offer it to us. They offered it to LucasArts. And LucasArts said, "Sure, we're going to do it for the Xbox. Goodbye, Nintendo." And we, at the same time, didn't get a green light. So the whole rest of 2000, there was not any work done on the game, right? At least that's how
keep in mind we were still finishing up the other games. I mean, we're still finishing up games that were almost finished, and we're crunching hard on that. So we just didn't have the resources for it.
Yeah. And Bastian at the time, the artist at Factor 5 together with Paul Topoulos, Bastian was the only one really spending a lot of time on it because he was building all of the ship models, right?
Yeah. He was.
He started that because we knew that there would be no way if we would start Rogue Leader for sure and for real on January 1st of 2001. We knew that we only would have 9 months and for the whole thing, and there would be no way that with our, how many artists we have at the time? 2, 3? There was not many, right?
Mario, Bastian, Paul came later.
Yeah.
Suzanne, right?
No, Suzanne.
She was just on Battle.
She did the skies. She was on Battle for Naboo. No, it was on Rogue Leader. Leader, I believe, really was done by Paul, Bastian, Jim Moore. I think Jim Moore also had joined. Yeah. Right, Jim and Mario. I mean, it was those four guys who did most of the graphics and everything. So that's why we. Yeah, it was nuts. No, it was beautiful because at the time you could do a game like this with that few people. Yeah. But to finish the story there about the political upheaval. So it got really nasty towards the end of 2000. That much I remember. And because LucasArts came to us, we said no way. We're a technology partner of Nintendo. This would completely destroy our relationship with Nintendo, and we're not going to do it. And they, of course, said, well, what do you mean you're not going to do it? And we dug in, and we said, we're not going to do it. If you sign the deal with Microsoft, our relationship is out, and you can do the game yourself, have fun. And it got super nasty towards that. And at the end of the day, Lucas had to budge, and they said, "All right, I guess we have to do this with Nintendo." And we were safe because for us it would have been a complete political nightmare, of course. And for Microsoft, a pretty big win. I mean, they ended up having Halo, so they were just fine, of course. But they were really worried that Halo wouldn't make it as a launch title, and they could have used Rogue Leader at the time. But yeah, then in January we started out with the whole thing. Oh, the water planet here. The water planet is the very last thing that ever was finished. Remember that?
Yeah, you can also tell it looks pretty nice.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice. It was the stuff which we had it in the designs relatively, but the whole water we didn't get around for a long time. Or was it? No, Cloud City was the next one which we did, right? Do you remember in which order we did get everything up and running?
Oh, well, Death Star, and then we started Hoth because we wanted to have the landscape, right? Death Star didn't have any landscape, so the landscape was the next big thing. And Hoth was a challenging one. So I think it was in that order. And then we started Bespin.
Mm-hmm. And then we did Bespin, yeah, exactly. Yep. And
Bespin took a long time too before it was pretty.
Yeah. Oh, at that time, though, we had building blocks, right, and we could let the level designers work in parallel to the engineers.
Right. Yeah. And Bespin, to get a little bit technical here, Bespin, of course, the skirt of the city is basically a landscape. And the cityscape itself is like the Death Star surface, which is basically a type, we call it a tile-based map. So we needed to have the Death Star tech in place, and we needed to have the landscape tech in place to do Bespin. And then I think the only other outlier was the interior of the second Death Star, right? Because that was a completely new engine one more time, which was a little bit like a first-person shooter almost.
Yeah.
And that actually was the very last one. So the water planet here, the water stuff was the second to last. The very last thing was the second Death Star, which is why it's in the Rogue Leader version. The interior tunnel stuff is pretty rough stuff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was also hard to design, and I don't know. I think we bit off more than we could chew on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean when we did Rogue Squadron or Rogue Leaders for the Wii, the game that never was released, and well, hopefully it will at some point, but at least so far hasn't been released. That of course featured all of these levels amongst many other things, and you could see in that one which levels we had to redo the most. Or basically changed the most. And I remember we the trench run is much better in that one because the trench run is a lot more fun. The trench run here is a little bit hard, to be quite honest.
Well, if you know what you're doing, it's kind of a walk in the park, right?
Yeah, it's just like
very,
the Atari
very predictable
vector game.
Yeah.
Yes. As these speedrun people obviously
I remember
show.
the trench run. Funny story. I remember the design, or we said that okay, if you just fly out of the trench, you get shot down immediately, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna launch a missile at the player, and we had some test players, and they managed to evade the missile that got shot at them, and they just kept flying out and flying all over, and found new ways to play the game that way.
I remember our lead tester doing the whole thing upside down.
Yes,
that's true.
Chuck McFadden could do the trench run upside down. He always immediately they were so good at it. They immediately would flip around. So basically use I think it was the Z trigger, right, to lock in rotation, and then basically flip around and then play the level upside down, just because they were so bored.
Yes.
And speaking about the last things that we did, I think that the medals, the platinum medals, were the very last thing which came in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The whole company was playing the game and trying to beat any score, and we had to submit our best scores. I remember I got some of them, but
right. And we wanted to have gold, of course, the hardest, and then we tried to play those scores, and we're like, no way, no normal person can play with this at this level. So that's why we added the platinum ones.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then people immediately got them, of course. That was the funniest thing.
Yeah. Well, not me.
The academy. So in terms of biting off more than you can chew, this level here is the one which never in the original game worked out the way how we had designed it. It's an okay level here. And especially the volumetric fog on the ground is, I think, the first time anybody ever did that on any platform. So technologically, it's definitely amazing. But gameplay-wise, it didn't work at all out the way it was intended to. And this one is the one which is actually in Rogue Leaders on the Wii, actually, finally the way it's supposed to be. So
you just saw him skip all the stuff that we designed.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's the perfect speedrun level, because if you find the glitches, and it has so many glitches, but we changed a lot in this one, and it's a much better level with a little bit more time. I mean, it's ironic. We probably spent on that damn reimagining of all of these levels, we spent significantly more time, I believe, in aggregate than the original Rogue Leader actually took, and Rebel Strike. But yeah, so the Academy level, that was an awesome one. In terms of the art, by the way, so one of the things that people always ask, so what made Rogue Leader look so good at the time? Because I mean, to this day, people can't believe that this thing is 20 years old and is running on a GameCube. So, what do you guys think? What's the magic and what's the secret behind it?
There was a lot of technical knowledge about. I mean, for example, the crafts, right? The way they were designed. We designed them the shaders and the textures on them, right? We could go with just color textures, but no, we went with grayscale textures because they offered more detail, because you could get more pixels in the same amount of memory, and then tinted them and stuff like that. We really didn't just use a straightforward approach on any of these.
Yeah, although I would say that the grayscale tinting stuff that was on the N64 Rogue Squadron, right, to get around the stupid small. But on the GameCube, I think that Bastian was pretty happy in general, and Paul, that they finally could use higher res textures. I think the trick was that we actually told them to go all out on this one, because I mean the ships, they actually did the highest level of detail on the ships is 25,000 polygons, which at the time was a completely crazy number, and nobody else did something. I mean, not even for characters at the time were polygon amounts that high used, and I think that makes all the difference. That we have so many levels of detail in here.
Yeah, but you only see them in the hangar, right?
The 25,000 one, yeah, but the in-game one actually goes up to 12,000. When the camera gets really close to the A-wing here, that's 12,000 polygons on the A-wings. And of course, you've got your buddies flying with you. That actually was a cool thing which we never worked out for the N64, which really works out well here. The flying in the squadron and it feeling much more like a squadron because you're always flying with your friends. That actually worked out really well.
Yeah, the inspiration for that came from R-Type.
With the satellite. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's actually a good point.
That's what we wanted to achieve. But also, if you look at the crafts, right, there's always something moving on them. So they're not just static boxes in space.
Yeah, but
the engines do things. There's little flaps that move and stuff. And before that, it was really just a box in space that was floating around.
Yeah, pretty much. And the engine exhaust, actually, remember we had long discussions about that because, of course, in the movies, in the original trilogy, there was barely any engine exhaust, if any, visible. And we overemphasized that because we needed it. On the one hand, we wanted to look exactly like the movies, but on the other hand, we had to overemphasize that. Because otherwise you wouldn't get a feeling for speed. And it actually worked out well.
Speeding up and slowing down.
Right, yeah.
I remember we had heated discussions with the color of the engines. Because QA wrote us up like, oh no, in the movie, at this and this minute of this and this movie, the color is that, and you are using the different color.
Yes.
The same with lasers.
Exactly, yes, and sound.
Exactly. We're at the Battle of Endor. There's too many.
And there were too many of them. Remember when you were coming back and saying, I can't hear these TIE fighters in front of me. Yes, because you hear them behind you. Yeah, I don't want to hear them behind me. I want to see them in front of me. So mixing down those TIE engines was a nightmare for each level.
Yeah, I remember that. You guys, I mean, you had a real problem. You had a real problem there. Yeah, it was because there were so many ships. I mean, in the first Rogue Squadron on the N64, you barely had like 4 or 5 maybe on the screen together with you, and
exactly.
we pulled off 50, more than 50 at some points. Yeah. Yeah. One thing which I remember is. Didn't Tony Wong join us for this? And that was the only reason why we did get the asteroid levels in there, right? Because Tony did the asteroid levels.
Mm-hmm.
He came to us from Rare, where he was on Perfect Dark Zero for the GameCube, which never came out, obviously. When Microsoft bought out Rare, and Tony basically jumped ship there, came to us, and immediately, I think he came to us in January. He had done Conquer before, Conquer's Bad Fur Day, and was lead on that. And he came to us, and we immediately threw him into Rogue Leader and said, here, do the craziest amount of asteroids that anybody has ever done. And I think to this day, the asteroid level holds up in that respect.
I remember this level is the most 3D. I was just looking at the radar, right? Because we tried to figure out. In essence, it's a 2D game, right? It's a left and right, kind of steering, and then we wanted to have up and down a little bit, but that's very confusing to the player. If you just have free flight all the time, it's very confusing. So we tried to get some up and down in this level, and I think there has
in this level, in the frigate level, second level, that has up and down, but you always have something. This one is the freest one because the frigate one at least has the convoy as kind of a leveling plane. This one, it has the motherships. It has basically the big motherships, but still, it's pretty free flight. Yes.
Yeah, the skies were a big part in orienting the player. That we always had some reference, like the big planet, right, the Death Star and stuff like that. It just wasn't fun.
And by the way, your trick that you were talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trick that you were talking about with the that we painted, that we used grayscale, and when we painted on color with color per vertex. That's actually how the motherships here are textured, right? Because they're so big, they don't have traditional down there. Because they're so big, they actually are using shaders to actually get the color smearing on it. So. And everything else is grayscale there. Yeah, I remember, Holger, didn't you do, I think for this game, we did triple buffering for the first time to get to 60 FPS, right? And you did you worked forever on that whole timing scheme.
Yeah. Because it was a pain when it actually did drop to make it not jerky.
Mm. Yeah, or basically have as frame drops as possible. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting fight. So how do you guys remember 9 months? I mean, was it did Holger, you got married in during that time, right?
Yeah, in June, right? And we shipped in October, I think. I think we did this demo, and then it was like, oh yay! And then we did like 1 or 2 levels, and we thought we were on a good trajectory. And I even got a week out of a somewhat honeymoon out of it.
Yeah.
But then it was right back into the crunch. Yeah. And boy, did we crunch on this one.
Yeah, this was pretty bad. This was pretty bad.
How do you guys remember all these months? Still, for me, this is one big blur.
Okay. Well, got married in June, right? That's easy. And then I remember we were crunching towards the end, and I was working till like 4 in the morning or something with Julian on something, and I drove home and then turned the radio on, and that was 9/11 actually, and I heard this stuff happening on the radio as 9/11 was happening.
Well, I remember that morning. The funny thing, you drove home because it was of course it was I think 6 in the morning here when the first plane hit. So I was driving home to my house, you were driving to yours, and you actually kept the radio on. I was so spent that morning that I just turned the radio off. And when I remember coming into the house, basically my kids, my ex-wife basically at the time was basically getting the kids to school, and I bumped into them walking out of the house, and telling them something flew into the World Trade Center, but I need some sleep here. So I slept for 6 hours or 7 hours, and she woke me up finally at 1 or so in the afternoon, or at 2, and the whole world had changed. She was like, okay, you have to get up at this point. But I needed the sleep because we were crunching every night so hard. And then basically she said, the whole world has changed. And I said, what are you talking about? And our friends from Germany were trying to reach us desperately if everything was okay, because of course there were all of these rumors flying around that the Golden Gate Bridge also had been attacked and all of that stuff. It was a crazy day. Certainly we'll never forget it. And actually remember that afternoon when we came into the office and there was just dead silence.
Yeah, it was very somber. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very somber. So we finished actually Rogue Leader right after 9/11. I think we were in the final, almost final mastering phase, because I remember we mastered it in September, and Nintendo actually said, well, you guys are the furthest along. Miyamoto's team, which was doing Luigi's Mansion, is behind you guys. So why don't you be the guinea pig for the very first GameCube disc to be manufactured? And we were a little bit upset about that because Nintendo enforced that and we could have used more time. So the Luigi's Mansion guys got 3 more weeks of development time for launch. And we had to finish at a certain date because we were the guinea pigs for the disc production.
Yeah, and that's how the game was in stores before the console. No, it's true. I mean, it was in stores before you could buy the console. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Oh boy! And here's the interior of the. Sorry, it's good, but man, it's playability-wise, it's questionable.
It's rough. I mean, I had a hard time playing it. I don't even know if I ever managed to get through it. I hated it when someone wrote up, "Oh, at the end of this level, there's a bug." And, I'm like, spent half a day to write a cheat to get to that point without playing through the level.
Oh, speaking of bugs, by the way, do you guys remember that there is this nasty bug in Hoth which we never found? That randomly Hoth crashes for almost everybody who's ever played the game. Hoth has crashed at one point or the other, and we desperately were looking for it. And even after the game shipped, Nintendo made us look for it further for the second run of discs, and we still couldn't find it. I think to this day nobody knows why Hoth crashes.
Yeah, well, we just were pushing it pretty hard there,
Yes,
memory-wise, and
everything.
You played it a different way. Some conditions were met, and yeah.
Oh yeah, here we have the final blow up of the Death Star. Yeah, Rudy, this is the fire chasing the player. That's movie, right?
That's movie. Yes, exactly. As like the first Death Star exploding, that's a movie too. That was the only two movies in this game that had to be edited, and the third movie would be the one that contains all of the level selection.
Right. Yeah. Did we ever have any problems with the memory? I think because people were complaining that the GameCube discs had of course much less storage space than the PS2 DVDs. But I don't remember that we had any issues with memory.
I don't know. I was very happy about the disc and not having to cramp all the audio into a cartridge.
Yeah. The cartridge times. I mean, it was nice in terms of load times and everything, but it was tricky, definitely.
No, we didn't have any problems with that. Actually, we to get the loading times down, we duplicated every asset in the game.
Right.
If there was a TIE fighter in the level,
right.
we didn't seek a different position on the disc. We just duplicated it.
All right. And I guess we're coming to the end here. They blew up the second Death Star and they finished it in 40 minutes. That's pretty crazy. When the official game time is 7 hours?
Yeah. Chuck can do it in 20 minutes.
Chuck, I think Chuck could do it in 20 minutes. All right. Well, thanks guys for watching this all together here. Good memories, good times, stressy times. But boy, this definitely was one of the better Star Wars games, I have to say in retrospect. And I loved working with the whole team and with you guys at the time.
Yeah, same here. Definitely learned a lot.
Yeah.